Could you retire on $37,000 a year? Find out on the focus group.
It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
Bueller, Bueller, Bueller.
Laugh. And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is the Focus Group with Tim Bennett.
Staunch.
And John Nash.
Keep your clothes looking neat and clean.
We're all business. Except when we're not.
Welcome to the focus group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host, Mr. Tim Bennett. Check out focusgroupradio.com for all the information about our show, our audio platforms, our video platform. And if you're tuning in live on Facebook or YouTube, by all means, call us in the studio and join the conversation at 877-962-6846. In the booth, controlling everything, we have the fantastic John and the fantastic Garrett. I need to have different adjectives for the two of you. And, by the way, John is more like me, and Garrett's a lot like Tim. So someday, we're going to do a takeover. They're going to come and switch.
Or they can come sit with us, and then Garrett and I could badger John and John. But I don't know who will run the booth. I don't know who will run all the mechanics.
We'll leave the camera on the three-quarter shot or something. And I love that. Garrett and I will badger John and John.
John and John. Maybe when we have Aunt Barbara. Aunt Barbara's going to be joining us
in November.
later in the fall. And many of you have asked about Aunt Barbara, and she's back doing Tupperware.
Yeah, I'm so happy about that.
We just had a call with her, and she's going to be joining us. And there may be a chance for some of you to be in the audience.
Studio audience.
Yeah, but you'll learn about that later on.
So,
is that a tease, John?
That's a good tease. And the last time Tim's wearing one of my favorite shirts, and the last time he wore it was on our tour 2 years ago of the LL Bean factory up in Maine.
Yeah, we were doing the Jetta CarPlay road trip tour, and due to some of the work that I had done in a previous life with LL Bean, I still knew the CMO and the president of the company, so we went in for a tour. And I don't know how I got this shirt.
It's a rare shirt.
They even noticed it was rare.
The red bean boot is actually a limited edition as well. So the shirt was limited. But having the CMO take you around the
there it is. There's the LL Bean. Let me get the LL Bean boot.
The boat and tote factory. Hey, John's got that. See, Tim, we can't do the robot stick thing. He's got the joystick. So we got the CMO to take us around the boat and tote factory, and that was so fun. And it was like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Everybody was happy. They're doing.
What else are you going to do in Maine? I mean, it's a good job for Maine.
And there you see why we've been friends for so long. I'm like, everybody's happy. And you're like, what else are you going to do up in Maine?
It's like being in Oz, right? I mean, what are you going to do if you're not
at 12?
At the end of the yellow brick road, there's nothing to do.
I told this before. When I was a kid, we're watching Wizard of Oz. Back in the day, you could only see Wizard of Oz once a year.
As it should be.
As it should be. And it was before the holidays, usually. So we're sitting in front of the TV. We have our Jiffy Pop. Remember that ball of foil? Probably toxic. We're eating it or munching it. I used to always hate when the flying monkeys came in, but they're in Oz, and we might have been watching in black and white until my grandmother, God rest her soul, Nana, willed us her color television. So we're watching, and I said, I'm watching the song, and I look at my mom. I said, Mom, if they get up at 12 and they start to work at 1, they take an hour for lunch, and then at 2 they're done. Jolly good fun. I said, they don't work.
It's like the French.
And my mom just looks at me. She goes, no, they don't work in Oz, honey. She goes, but we work here.
Isn't that the French? The French are like that.
Siesta. That's like Spain and France. So fun show we got planned for everybody today. Our normal banter, business birthday caught our eye. And later in the program, joining us from Philly is going to be Angela Giampolo. And her segment is called The Outlaw. And Garrett's got that all. Garrett, maybe you should give that a. Tim, have you heard the whip crack yet?
Is there a whip crack? There it goes. You're going to make her dominatrix.
I was wondering if there might be some issues with putting a whip crack on.
So she's an expert in LGBT law.
Yep.
She's an activist, entrepreneur, author, and I'm sure you read the profile. Probably half her interview will be you and I asking her questions outside of LGBT law.
Of her domain.
She has a number of topics that she's going to share with us, and we're hoping to have a recurring segment every month with her to update us on all things LGBT law that pertain to us here in the U.S., and then she also has some global issues because she's pretty global herself in her reach. I was surprised.
And we'll get to it when we have her on, but the topic of the book she's writing, I was fascinated by. I just loved it. It was so far from what she does for a living.
I don't know if she has time to do anything else when I read her bio. Isn't the bio it's full?
In other words, you're afraid to hire her as an attorney because she'll be, Tim, I'll look at that.
Or she's one of those because you give her the work because they always say if you need something done, give it to someone
One of the busiest person in the room.
Because they'll get it done. That was Beth Gardner.
I loved Beth. I remember.
I always give her everything.
Tim had a fantastic woman who worked for him in marketing, Beth, and we had to interface with her on a couple of projects. And so Tim calls me one day when I had my agency. He said, "Hey, you got to work with this really." Well, you said it this way: you got to work with Beth on X, Y, and Z. She's buttoned up. She's going to get it done. Yeah. She's buttoned up. She's going to get it done.
I remember one time we worked with Greensgrow, which was at the time an urban farm, experimental farm, I guess, in the city. And the Subaru had come out with that Baja, which was a dog.
Baja.
It was about
Baja.
After the 200 lesbians bought them, the thing was dead in the water. So we said we were trying to figure out how to get rid of some cars, and I said, "Why don't we put some on a loan or do something with the farm?"
That's why Mary had.
And 3 or 4 weeks later, Mary calls me and goes, "There's a whole truckload of these cars that showed up." So I called Beth. I said, "Beth, what are we doing with these Bajas?" She goes, "I gave them to him."
She just took it and ran? She
said,
took care of it?
Yeah. I said, "What?" I said, they have to pay for the tax value of whatever as a gift. But it was funny. I said, "Beth, why are you giving them?" I said, just lease them. She goes, "Too much paperwork. It's easier to give them away." I said, "Okay." You have the budget.
That was Beth. Beth.
I said, if you have the budget and it all comes in within budget and it's something you want to do, she goes, "Oh, no, it makes a lot of sense."
Too much paperwork.
They still have them. They still have the cars.
And that explains why one of our favorite interstitials, if you don't know what an interstitial is, a 30-second spot's a spot. Anything longer than that or shorter than 5 minutes, they call interstitial content. We did a beautiful, thanks to Tim, we did a beautiful one on Mary Seton and Greensgrow when we were on Logo, when Subaru launched on Logo, when that network launched on Viacom. And in that interstitial, she is driving a Baja. Yeah. A yellow Baja. And I never knew why. I thought the car had been provided for that day, but apparently there was a dealer in Texas who used to always call me up to get some gay and lesbian marketing done for him, and he goes, if you want, you could feature that Baja, but I'm not moving that car. Put in a Forester. Like, he was very direct about that.
I had an old boss that said to me once, because when you had trouble moving, there was always a car that didn't move. Blue cars were tough to sell. Light blue cars were difficult to sell. And there were different models that were difficult to sell. And these school bus yellow Bajas were very difficult to sell.
They were school bus yellow.
I would say, these are very tough to sell because we haven't crushed a new one yet. And that was always his line. We haven't crushed a new one yet.
In other words, crunch,
in other words, it'll sell. You'll find somebody will buy it, but you've got to go find the people to buy it.
Did you have a name? A sled?
Something that stayed on the lot a long time.
A sled.
Sled didn't move. It's got a sled. Yeah, if you had a light blue front drive Legacy sedan, that was having a birthday on the lot.
But it wasn't getting crushed.
It wasn't getting crushed. Somebody will come in.
All right, so what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Well, considering Costco and everyone else is pushing the season, this caught my eye due to the headline because I thought to myself, well, is there anything they don't do? So this is Amazon. So Amazon is now going to start delivering full-size Christmas trees to your house.
Oh, I just saw this.
Did you see this?
And Bob said to me, "You're going to get what you get."
And it's going to be hard to steal off the steps, though, I think. Different than... Right?
I'll say if it's a live tree, right? Yeah.
So last year they tried this out, and you could order through Amazon. You could get a Christmas tree as long as it was 3 feet or smaller, so a little tree. Well, this year they decided you can order one up to 7 feet tall. It will come in a box. It's guaranteed to be shipped either a Douglas fir or a Norfolk Island pine within 10 days of being cut. Although they're not going to prepare the tree at all in the box, so you better hurry up and open it so it doesn't go, needles fall off.
And prepare, you mean somehow?
Well, as soon as it arrives, you better. They're not going to. They're just going to cut it, throw it in a box. If you're a Prime member, there are some instances where you'll get either free shipping or 2-day shipping through Amazon Prime. So you won't even have to pay for shipping. I didn't think the price was too bad. They're coming from a North Carolina farm. The price, do you want to guess what the price is for a 7-foot tree?
I have two things. We're terribly upset by what Florence did to North Carolina, South Carolina.
I wonder if this is going to affect the trees.
The minute you said if they're coming from a farm in North Carolina, they could either be $5 because they might be totally damaged by the hurricane. Or I'm going to guess, I'm going to put it at $65.
$115.
Ooh, $115. Okay.
No, I didn't think that was too bad. I think in the city in the Northeast, sometimes if you want a 7-foot tree, it's a big tree.
Yep, it's
it will be
expensive.
$65, $80, whatever. I always liked. I should have put the picture in on the deck if you're watching along. But the last time Brian and Rich and I, we went out to get a Christmas tree, my neighbors, and we had our saws. We were going to go cut a tree down and drink hot chocolate. It ended up being about 80 degrees. We were sweating in our sweatshirts in early December. But we ended up just finding one that had already been cut down. We walked miles on. It felt like acres and
On the
acres on
farm,
this Christmas
or
tree.
on the
We could not
acreage,
find
yeah.
anything we liked, but we ended up just buying one that was already cut. Do you guys go out and search for a tree? Upstate, you probably do.
We in the city, you know, you could spend $300 on a tree in Manhattan, depending on where you're at. So Bob has a very particular tree.
There we go.
It's like almost a
Yeah.
Charlie Brown tree, like the bottle, like they look like bottle, like the branches are far apart from each other. You can hang
The ornaments.
So eventually, I think it was 2 years ago, he is sitting on his computer one day at the house upstate. He goes, oh my God, it's on sale. And he's click, 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 click. And he buys an artificial tree that looks real. And I forget the name of the company's escaping me now, but if I could find it in a second. But it arrives now.
So you're all artificial.
And you know what? The greatest thing about that is I always worried about leaving that tree in the house.
In the apartment. Well,
It's dry. It could catch on fire.
see, Philadelphia is one of the major cities where you're not allowed to have, I think over 2 or 3 stories, you're not allowed a live tree
Interesting.
in a building,
Okay.
even in a private residence. But they said New York, Chicago, some of the bigger cities, they don't care, that you can still do it. But so they're saying that actually they did use Philadelphia as an example. This isn't the first company that offers Christmas tree delivery. There's a group called the Christmas Tree Stand, which launched, and they'll deliver a Douglas fir or a Fraser fir tree to your house for setup and removal. Now, I know in New York they do that. Neiman's used to do it.
Yep,
A few places
yep.
used to do it. But I wonder, would you, and so it says, despite all this rise in delivery options now, only 1% to 2% of live Christmas trees are ever purchased online. Maybe this year it will change with the advent of
Yeah.
Amazon. What do you think?
Possibly.
order one?
I just think
what you get.
sight unseen with a tree is, roll the die. Hey, if you're a Vegas fan, what do you got there?
So we had, these just showed up. We don't know from who, but obviously as somebody that's on the know, I guess. We got 2.
In the know.
In the know. We got 2 cookies to try from Oreo. One of them we tried already, but I think we tried it as there was a contest. Remember, we tried all the different Rocky Roads and shortbread or whatever.
And they're only limited for a while.
Limited for a
You had to
while.
vote or something.
So this must be the winner. So this is kettle corn
Oh, I remember kettle corn.
we had, and then
You
the
think-
other
you think
one.
They changed the formulation at all?
Oh, I don't know. We'll see. And then the other one, which
Oh, it
doesn't
smells like.
which doesn't debut until next year.
Did you give the guys in the booth any?
Doesn't debut till next year. Is carrot cake, which I love.
Love carrot cake.
So there's a
Seriously?
carrot cake Oreo, and you can see if you're watching along with the graphic, and then the kettle corn.
Okay, so we're trying carrot cake.
Carrot's already got our Oreologist.
Oreologist, yeah.
Oreographer, guys,
Oh, it's our Oreographer.
please.
Oh, and you're the Oreologist, right?
Well,
All right.
first of all, this carrot cake on the picture, it's orange on the inside, and this one's white on the inside.
Well,
Yeah, this must be
Yeah,
before.
that's true.
These came
Before
off the factory floor.
food coloring is added. This is from
What do you guys think?
I
of
like the
cake?
carrot cake. I like it.
Yeah. It's really good. I like it.
Not
What do you think?
gingerbread fan that much.
Yeah. I like it.
Wait a minute. You think this is gingerbread cookie?
No, but Garrett
The
figured
cookie
out
part.
that some of the primary ingredients of gingerbread are also some of the ingredients of these other cookies, like brown sugar. I'm trying to think of some of the other stuff, but if you don't like that flavoring, I like the carrot cake. I love carrot cake to begin with.
Does it outdo birthday cake, Garrett?
No.
No.
Doesn't hold a candle at all.
No.
And what about the kettle? Did the kettle corn
I
change?
still like kettle corn.
Kettle corn's still good, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
slamming.
Kettle corn's a slam dunk in my opinion. I like carrot cake and I like these both.
So of the 2, what did you like?
I'd probably go with kettle corn. Garrett, what would you do?
Kettle corn.
Yeah.
Yeah, kettle corn.
But
Delicious.
if I'm standing at the Oreo aisle, and if they don't have kettle corn, I would definitely try carrot cake. It was carrot cake works.
Now the carrot cake cookie to me was a little mushy.
Softer, Nicely
All right.
done.
Thank you, whoever sent them.
Thank you, whoever sent them.
What caught your eye?
All right, mine, I got two. One's a quick pictorial one. John's going to put up some images. Last week, we had the pleasure of welcoming to New York a woman that we love working with, and she's over at Deep Discount. Her name is Lauren. And we were out at dinner, and I was talking about how social media sometimes reminds me of a dumpster fire. It's either good or it's bad, often bad, and the good could be great. And she just smiled and she said, you need to check something out. And she goes, go to Twitter and check out hashtag you had one job. So it's this feed called You Had One Job. And I think the pictures are going to tell you everything you need to know. So let's call up the first one. So this says, this was posted on the hashtag You Had One Job. 45-minute standoff with tiger ends when police realize it's a stuffed toy. You had one job.
Where was that?
I think it must be Australia or England because they spelt realize with an S.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so next one says it all. John just put up a picture of a van with a sticker on the back, and the sticker, which tells you everything about the business you're supposed to know, is upside down, virtually illegible.
Oh, my God.
Next. Oh, I love this one. Picture of a red sweatshirt with like a hoodie with a kangaroo on it. It says Australia, but underneath it, instead of saying down under, it says Dwan under. DWON. You had, hashtag you had one job, right?
That could have been from Japan.
This one I love. Coming soon in September. SEPTERMPER. Not even my worst spelling days that I ever come up with September like that. But yeah, you had one. Hashtag, thank you, Lauren, you had one job. I think we had, what is it? The Arrington, here's a picture of a fire department station where they put those letters on a light board. And it says, remember to move your cocks forward this weekend.
They ran out of L's.
I mean, you had one job. So that was a sampling, but if you want to check that out, so thank you, Lauren. That caught my eye when she told me at dinner.
That reminds me, I tried to find the, so at Subaru, the tagline was the beauty of all-wheel drive. And so somebody decided it'd be a great idea for all the huge trailer trucks coming on the plant to do the beauty of all-wheel drive. And they spelled beauty without a U. So it became the Beatty. And these trucks were driving around for months before anybody even noticed the misspelling. Because the letters were like 3 feet tall. The Beatty
of all.
And I had a picture of one on my desk for years.
What happened to it?
Somebody took it.
All right, the next little bit is a quickie, and it comes to us from England. I think the town might be Ipswich. But at night, there are people in a town who would hear this creepy children singing the song, It's Raining, It's Pouring, like at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning. It's raining. I think we even have a little, they might have recorded it. And John, if you want to play. And he bumped his head. Yeah. So that's like playing in the night, like this ethereal thing, and there was freaking people out.
In this city?
Near the town of Ipswich. So one night it starts up, and the woman calls the first responder, and they come and they could hear it, and they're going to help her track down the thing. They track it down to a nearby factory warehouse area, and it was actually a deterrent system that was set up. So when someone tripped a motion detector, they would start playing these children singing. But what was tripping the motion sensor was spiders. They were actually crawling across the sensor. So the factory changed the settings, and now the ethereal sounds of children singing at 3 in the morning are no more. So there you go. Hashtag you have one job, and spiders tripping a motion sensor, and it's the Children of the Corn. It was like Children of the Corn, right?
I like that one.
I like that one. All righty.
So business birthday today.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
This business birthday, so this person was born on September 19th, which is today's date, but he was born in 1839. He died at 83 in 1922. His name is George Cadbury.
Chocolate?
Chocolate. He was the third son of John Cadbury, who was a Quaker, who founded Cadbury's Cocoa and Chocolate Company in Britain. And so the Cadbury brothers were given the company over by their dad when they were 21 years old in 1861. The company was struggling. And so they worked hard at it for 5 years and tried to get it going. They bought some additional land and in Birmingham, I guess that's the right
well said. Perfect.
And opened a new factory in 1879. But as much as they worked in the factory, the two brothers were actually more concerned about the quality of life of their employees and more of the societal life of the working man. So they established a Quaker study center in the building, which remains to be the only center in Europe today, where they offered short educational courses on spiritual and social matters to Quakers and others. Now, I thought, could you be a Quaker?
I think Quakerism is, don't they sit quiet?
They sit quiet. You
they
can't
just
do
sit
it.
and they think, well, we discussed this with Garrett and John last week. I could not work.
Imagine John being a Quaker and
I could not work in a customer call center, right?
No.
John said you never say goodbye to people,
No,
and you
I
agreed.
said that,
And then Garrett's like, no, you can't be in a call center. Yeah,
Yeah, you'd be on the
Can't take
phone too long.
complaints.
You got to get throughput through.
So I guess you can't, it can't be a Quaker then. Right?
So they, so as I said, they believed even though the company was moving along and doing better as they moved and bought more land, they also developed things like a hospital, canteens, sporting grounds, affordable housing. They essentially created this company town where everybody could live affordably, but of course they own the buildings.
And you paid with Cadbury money at the Cadbury canteen.
Didn't go that far, but as I read it, I thought, well, they said, but these towns were much better than the grimy city life that many were accustomed to. So it wasn't until really what put the company. You want to know what put the company on the map? Which made them successful?
Which piece of
the candy business, or the there were two things that were game changers for them.
And it was a long time ago?
1800s.
Oh, okay. I can't guess.
One was 1905. Well, no, it was 1800s.
I can't guess then.
Launching powdered cocoa.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
Yeah. They said it changed the face of the small business, increased sales dramatically, transformed them into a renowned brand and one of the largest chocolate
powdered
in the
cocoa.
world. And then they said they also launched their very first milk chocolate, which they used a similar recipe to the Swiss brands, but improved it and produced a lighter colored chocolate called Cadbury's Dairy Milk in 1905, which they still sell today. But they left an awful lot of their money, very philanthropic, but they really were. Their dad had built the business, so they continued to grow the business, but they really were more concerned with
the worker,
and society and giving back to the communities. So happy
what a
birthday
cool
to
thing.
Cadbury.
Good business birthday. What a cool thing. And you could tell Tim liked the business birthday because there were multiple panels of pictures.
Well, but that house, I don't know if you saw the second one, one of the houses, it's all boarded up. Now, so it's in England. I don't know if that was original picture. Or
was that one of the
one of the houses on the estate that they in the company town? So it looks
people
like
would live in, that the workers would live in.
I guess so. Or no, that they lived in.
Oh, that they lived in. All right.
I'm guessing. I should have looked this up, but I think didn't Cadbury sell to Hershey or something?
Either Nabisco, Nestle, someone holding company bought them.
I think so,
You're
yeah.
right. Because I remember we dealt with Cadbury. Yeah, it's coming.
There was Cadbury, Schweppes, and
yeah, exactly.
we should know that, but we don't.
Business birthday. All right, as many of you know, Deep Discount is a partner and friend of ours here on the Focus Group. Get the deep discount by going to focusgroupradio.com, clicking on the shark logo, the shark, and start shopping away. This month is the Criterion sale. It's one of our favorite months because Criterion they distribute, I should say, incredibly great releases of a lot of great movies with a lot of added commentary, a lot of special features. And if you're a movie buff, Criterion's the place to visit. They gave us a set of discs. We have a bunch of discs we're giving away. Last week, you can still play, by the way. Last week we played an audio clue. Some of our listeners guessed it. I'm shocked because it was actually kind of hard. And we're going to play the game again before we go into what Criterion's doing this month and what the release at Deep Discount is. So how it works is this. Garrett's going to play an audio clue once or twice. If you know the name of the movie that clue comes from, just send us a note at letters@focusgroupradio.com. Just say the name of the movie. If you get it right, and it's the first 3 people who get it right, you're going to get 2 or 3 discs from Criterion, our selection. We're going to pick for you. But trust me, everything from Criterion is great, so you'll enjoy the movie. So Garrett, cue up that the clue for us today.
Oh, he's a monster. Pure psychopath. So rare to capture one alive.
Should we want to play it again, maybe?
Yes.
All right.
Oh, he's a monster. Pure psychopath. So rare to capture one alive.
All right, so this movie is available from the Criterion Collection that this came from, because that was Tim's caveat. It has to be from you could get it in Criterion. If you know the name of the movie the clue came from, just drop us your guess at letters@focusgroupradio.com. You can do it now or when you hear the audio podcast. So, Criterion Month. I am so thrilled about the movie they just released on Criterion. It is a favorite of mine that I was introduced to by Bob, and it's called My Man Godfrey.
Is this the old movie?
It's an old movie. It stars Carol Lombard, William Powell, and it was directed by Gregory LaCava, who also did a famous movie called Stage Door. It's restored. It's black and white. They also restored the monaural soundtrack, and it's a Blu-ray release. Got a lot of extra stuff going on, but essentially, it's a screwball comedy. And this is one of those Depression-era movies where the rich lived in these enormous houses with staircases the size of, like, you know, the Titanic or something. Shall I read the... A potent cocktail of romantic repartee and Depression-era social critique, Irene, who's played by Carol Lombard, an eccentric Manhattan socialite, wins a society ball scavenger hunt after finding one of the items on the list, which is actually a lost man, and she found him at the local dump, and that's William Powell. She gives the man she believes to be a down-and-out drifter work as the family butler, My Man Godfrey, and soon falls head over heels in love. Her attempts to both woo Godfrey and indoctrinate him in the dysfunctional ways of the household make for an unbeatable series of madcap hijinks. It is a great script. It's well played.
What year was it?
1938.
30s? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Bob introduced it to me once. I saw it once all the way through. I was like, oh my God, this is hysterical. It's a very fun movie. So it's My Man Godfrey, and it's available from Criterion.
And mine I actually recommended a long time ago, but I'm going to recommend it again because I saw it on the Criterion list. And as John mentioned, the Criterion sale is going all month. So if you purchase anything from Criterion as well as playing Pick That Flick, if you buy something from the collection and let us know that you did, you'll get a pair of our famous Focus Group Radio socks. If you buy 3 or more things, which we recommend because then you probably get free shipping, we'll send you 2 pairs of socks. So
lots of ways to win, Tim. You could listen to a clue, guess a movie, buy some stuff, get some socks.
You have to rewind and listen to it all over again. So Shortcuts was my pick this week.
Oh, you love this movie.
So you can get it on Blu-ray for $23.40, which is it's over a 40% savings, which is a great price. And it traces the action of, I'll read this, traces the actions of 22 principal characters, both in parallel and at an occasional loose point of connection. And it's the role of chance and luck is central to the film, and many of the stories concern death and infidelity. And I remember seeing this in the theater, and I just couldn't get over how they wove the story together. So do you know who
directed it?
One of my favorite directors, Robert Altman.
Oh yeah, okay.
It stars, amongst other people, Tim Robbins, Julianne Moore, Robert Downey Jr., Jack Lemmon, Jennifer Jason Leigh. Lily Tomlin is in there, Andy McDowell, who I love. But I enjoyed it sitting there watching how all the stories kind of wove together, and I always marveled at the storytelling ability of this. It was originally released in 1993. And it was re-released through Criterion in 2016.
So they probably cleaned up the print and probably sparkles.
And there's a million, I shouldn't say it's not a million, but a lot of additional content, interviews with the directors, deleted scenes, looks at the way that it was marketed and so forth. Altman was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Director, but he lost to Steven Spielberg for Schindler's List.
Oh my God, what a year, right?
A tough year.
Hey, I should mention that the one I mentioned, My Man Godfrey, was one of the rare films that was the first to garner Oscar nominations in all 4 acting categories. Yeah.
Wow.
So
what was the new release?
Tim, you and I went really highbrow.
Highbrow this week.
Highbrow. The Criterion.
What was the new release this week, Mr.?
This week the new release is Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. So if you're a fan of the Jurassic Park stuff, this goes back to the original island because they learned that there's a volcanic eruption that's going to happen, and Chris Pratt and I guess Bryce Dallas Howard, who is Claire Deering, who plays the boss he had, go back to try to save the dinos, and I think they discover some deep dark secret or something. I've heard from friends who love. Did you guys see are you Jurassic fans or?
I mean, yeah, I dig the movies, but the last few were a little. I don't know. This sounds a little weird. I mean, they're gonna.
Well,
save
it's more of the same. Well, I don't mean to knock.
I just want them to take that amber and make a dinosaur. Why can't we make a dinosaur?
Yeah, I like that idea.
DNA, right?
I have to say, the original Jurassic Park, I can watch all the time because the way they lay it out, the way they talk about extracting the DNA from a mosquito that bit a dinosaur. Anyway, it's Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. It could be the last one they make. I don't know, but it stars Jeff Goldblum's in it. He seems to be in all of them, right? He's in
everything. He's like the Indiana Jones of Jurassic Park.
Yes. So, to recap, it's the Criterion sale at deep discount. All discs are on sale, over 1,300 titles. Earlier, we played an audio clue. If you know the name of the movie, drop us a note at letters@focusgroupradio.com. We'll send you some Criterion discs. And then Tim mentioned another way to win. Socks from us. If you buy one disc, you get one pair. If you buy 3 or more, you get 2 pairs. Lots going on. And then we have Shark is back for more. Let's see if we can sync up with Garrett now. Okay, we got close in. Ready? There. All right, now we're ready.
Thanks, Deep Discount.
You got to do it again.
Yeah, do it again, Garrett.
Thanks, Deep Discount.
John, you're a little slow.
Well, I'm not the one talking. If I go, thanks, Deep Discount.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to launch our Outlaw segment with Angela Giampaolo. She's an expert in LGBT law, amongst other things, and she has a new segment, as I mentioned, called Outlaw, so she'll be joining us shortly. Stay with us.
Brought to you by the Volkswagen Tiguan. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with my good friend and co-host Tim Bennett. FocusGroupRadio.com is the website that has all the information about our show, audio and video platforms. And, of course, the logos for some of our sponsors, including Deep Discount, which we hope you click through and start some shopping. So joining us now via Skype is Angela Giampaolo, my apologies, and she is one of Philadelphia's most accomplished young attorneys, innovative entrepreneurs, and dedicated community leaders. Her legal expertise spans a wide variety of practices, including corporate law, real estate, international law, civil rights, LGBT law, and estate planning. Now, we're going to call our segment with Angela the Outlaw, and we have a special sound effect to go with that. Garrett? There you go, Angela. I told you got a whip crack in there. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you back again. You've joined us before, and you're going to cover a couple things that Tim and I started to outline while we were getting you back on Skype, and it's LGBT issues and politics from the world and from the U.S., but a lot of these stories today are basically U.S. based, right?
Yeah. And before we do that, though, could you tell our audience, for those listening that may not have been familiar with, I think you were on about probably 8 months ago with us, but do you have a little elevator pitch you usually give to people? Because your resume is quite full. You're very busy.
I don't sleep. But yeah, so I live in Philadelphia, and I go by Philly Gay Lawyer. So I have a law firm called Giampaolo Law Group, and we service everyone in the law firm. But being Canadian and having started my practice about 12 years ago, I quickly realized that while servicing the LGBT community for all of their legal needs, the fact that we go bankrupt, we slip and fall, we sell real estate, we own businesses, that the fact that the laws were different impacted how I practice law for an LGBT individual versus a heterosexual individual. And so I created sort of a brand separate from my law firm called Philly Gay Lawyer. And that's the brand that I use to do radio segments like this, or books and whatnot. But so I'm an attorney here in Philadelphia servicing the LGBT community, but I have an active advocacy arm where on national issues or international issues, I deal with LGBT-specific issues.
And you write for a bunch of different LGBT periodicals, whether it's regional papers or like Edge Media sort of thing.
Yeah,
and right. And now you're joining us here on the focus group. So now you're going to go world famous, and
going viral.
We're going to have to change your name to Angela. I was going to like Angela Merkel. But so before we get into the stories you picked, you have dual citizenship. So you're an American Canadian. So you're fluent in obviously English, and you're fluent in French as well.
Yep. My mom's name is Solange Cassette, very French Canadian.
Okay, and then I also read in your bio that are you competent or almost fluent in Mandarin Chinese?
I can order rice and beer. I would say that for the Mandarin language, that is competent.
You could probably say hello too. I bet you could say like ni hao.
Thank you.
Ni hao.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So that's not bad.
So and then John had picked out something which again was tell us about the book you're.
Yeah, I love the new book. So Angela's working on a book, and it says it's about a narrative and pictorial review of your favorite open air rooftop bar and gathering spaces. What a cool idea!
So I think it has something to do with the fact that I'm 4'11", and every time I go to a new city, I naturally, my mom said ever since I was 4 or 5 years old, would gravitate towards the highest vista or view in that particular city. And so now in my older age, it's a shameless excuse to travel because I get to stay at all these hotels comp, but we stay at rooftop bars from around the world, and I write something about them, and I have to try a specialty cocktail that they have. So in Shanghai, for instance, it was a Shanghai Surprise, San Diego, Sunset Cliffs. So the rooftop mixed with a cocktail, mixed with shameless excuse to travel.
So we'll put you on the spot. So do you have a favorite rooftop bar in New York City?
New York is hard. New York, there's so many. There's over 80 in the summer. They have like a rooftop hop where they'll do 5 in a night and then do 5 more and then do 5 more. The architect who's actually writing the prologue to the book is Stephen B. Jacobs, who's an architect in New York, and he did what is now the Peninsula, but before it used to be the Gotham, and he's done the Library Hotel, the Gainsbourg. I would say the Library because I'm a dork. I'm out about my sexuality, but in the closet about my dorkiness.
But what about Philly?
Philly doesn't really have any.
No, rooftop bars. Don't some of the hotels have a couple? No,
they're not legit rooftops. They're balconies.
Oh.
You know, they're terraces. They wouldn't fit the mold.
So, Angela, I actually went to a wedding that was at the top of the peninsula probably about 4 years ago, and the rooftop space up there was pretty spectacular. The views of Central Park going north, you could look down south to see more of the city. It was pretty, and I'll have to try out the Library Bar. But let's get back on.
Yeah, all right.
Garrett, crack the whip for us. There you go. Time to get back on track.
So the first story we wanted to talk about was one that surprised me. It came out of Utah, and the title was "Utah Judge Rules Lesbian Couple are legally married months after one of them had died." So what happened? What was that story about?
So and it's not as surprising as you would think. Why it was very surprising for Utah is they do not and have never not recognized common law marriage. So we've had several of these situations in Pennsylvania, but what happened was the test for common law marriage is that you have the intent to live together as married, that you do so, that you put yourself out to the world as that. And for 50 years did that and ultimately never got married in life. Very, very, if you read the articles, 2 very sick women. The one who survived had 29 back surgeries. She's blind, double leg amputation. I mean, and the caretaker of her got sick with emphysema, and ultimately the double amputee ended up taking care of her in her old age, or in her dying years, rather. But so they never legally got married. And a friend of the woman who's a lawyer said, I've been seeing this in a few other states. We could petition the court to retroactively acknowledge that you did, in fact, get married, and the court can issue a decree saying so. And I've done that a couple times here in Pennsylvania, but in Utah, that's unheard of. And so after 50 years, now she's blind, mind you, in court, the judge issues his ruling, and she just doesn't think she heard correctly and starts crying, and the judge actually got off the bench, came down, hugged her, and repeated the ruling to her. And there's some video of it. It's very, very chilling. It was amazing.
Wow.
Why do you because this is, whether it's same-sex couples or straight couples that have lived together like this as common law, why didn't they, I just wonder why they didn't get married. Did they just not get around to it?
Right. So as an advocate, I completely 100 wholeheartedly disagree with this ruling. So Philly Gay Lawyer disagrees with this from a rule of law standpoint. And I've given a seminar to 500 judges in Pennsylvania, and I caution them against doing this. And at the end of one of the articles I read, nobody was sure.
Oops. Right.
Or a date they got married, or that they exchanged vows rather, back in like 1990 something. And the judge said, let's choose 2015 or 2013 to keep it less messy. On the record, he said, to keep it less messy. In Pennsylvania, we have a mess with this now. There are divorce lawyers, because Pennsylvania recognized common law the latest out of every state in the country, 2005. Other than that, we're looking at 1997. I know people that were in relationships predating 2005. And so divorce lawyers are saying, well, in 97, you had this huge ceremony, horse-drawn carriage, whatnot. We're saying you're married, so now I get half your retirement. So right now we have common law divorce issues in Pennsylvania. I mean, but this judge wanted to do what's right, and he goes to bed happy at night, and she's happy. But from a rule of law perspective, from a jurisprudential perspective, I 100% disagree. Interesting.
And so, to Tim's question, had they taken the time to actually even get someone to come to their home and just do the ceremony there and say, now you're wife and wife, whatever, that would have at least solidified it legally, and it would not have had to go the common law route, which Angela's saying is something she doesn't agree with. So interesting. All right. So the next bit I've been seeing percolate up in the news quite a lot, and that's a record number of LGBTQ candidates are running for office this year. It's the midterms. Christine Hallquist became the first openly transgender gubernatorial candidate for a major party recently as well. So this is an interesting trend, and it seems that some of these candidates are actually succeeding based on their positions and what they're up to, right?
Yeah.
I wonder, is this all there's an awful lot in the news talked about that this is happening because of the kind of a backlash to the current administration. So do you think, I know a record number of women were running, but do you also think it has also it kind of funneled over into the LGBT community as well then?
I think it's a combo of that. I mean, I feel like the LGBT community has always seen itself as an ally to any minority experiencing discrimination. So obviously everyone empathizes with the migrant children and Muslims on the Muslim ban, and women and their right to choose, and everything that's been on the butcher block during this administration. And there are gay people amongst all of those segments, right? Like one of my favorite candidates that I back, because she won't win, but I love her, is Lupe Valdez, sheriff running for governor in Texas. And she says being a lesbian is just a small part of who I am. I'm a woman, I'm Latina, I'm this. So I feel like the record number of LGBT candidates, which is actually quite small, I think the last statistic said there's 559 LGBT, openly gay or LGBTQ identifying candidates in office, and that only makes up 0.1% of all elected officials.
Wow. 0.1%.
And right now we have 400 running, so there's 559 in office and almost exactly that much. So maybe we'll make up 0.2 come November, but the stat said we would need 23,000 openly LGBTQ identifying candidates to have a true representative makeup of the 3% that we make up of the country.
Wow, John and I have another media property called TFG Unbuttoned, and I think we talked about it there. I was reading similar story to this here, where there are 6 candidates, either 6 or 8 candidates in Connecticut running for state office, that are all gay, that are Republicans, which was so.
Maybe they're old style Republicans.
Old style Republicans.
So, do you want to take this last one, Tim? Or
so the last story was, and I've looked at this and I've kind of danced around it, but it says the title was "Proposed Ohio Bill Would Force Teachers to Out Transgender Teens."
Is that
I can't see you dancing.
Angela, just the phrase a bill would force teachers to out transgender teens. Is that even within the rights of an individual to do that? I mean, how are they couching this? Because it's a minor and it's a teacher somehow? Because
it's a state employee. And so the legislatures can, so it's only certain state employees, so it wouldn't necessarily, if you're in a private school, chances are it's either religious in some way, shape, or form. So it really hits all public schools. So they're state-funded employees, and the legislature can now dictate that.
So would this be the sort of thing whereas if you were a questioning youth and you went into your guidance counselor or the school nurse or psychologist, whatever, and had a conversation with them and said, I'm having this, I feel I may be trans, This then takes it the next step where it's, well, I've got to call your parents rather than keeping that. So is that the issue here?
Right. I mean, if you hear a lot in the law, the threshold is knew or should have known, and it's placing that threshold on these employees. So oftentimes, and a lot of people that I've spoken to over the last couple of months about this bill, because I came out very young, so I didn't necessarily have this struggle of wanting to confide in someone other than necessarily my parents, but a lot of people went to their guidance counselor. A lot of people went to the school nurse that knew them. You're there 8 hours a day. You develop a relationship. You trust them. And you sense that there's a lack of confidentiality, that when you go home, what you said at school to the guidance counselor stays at school. And now it would be a 4th-degree criminal felony if it came out that that one of these employees did not notify both parents.
So this is a slippery slope then because we know that this teen suicide rate, particularly for trans kids, is off the charts.
Yeah, so 40%.
Right. So if you said if the unfortunate situation happens and somebody did commit suicide, the family then would have recourse to go back after the school employee for not telling them that their kid was trans?
Right, in some perverse way, the very suicide that was created from not being able to transition could come back on the teacher that didn't break the confidentiality. But I mean, like you said, the suicide rates are off the charts, 40% under the age of 24 attempt suicide. And one of the most internationally renowned, well-known suicide notes is from a teenager in Ohio, a 16-year-old, where the parents, every time she came out, Leila Akron, every time she came out in one way, shape, or form, they would isolate her. So she came out, they homeschooled her. She came out as trans, they sent her to a conversion therapy camp. And ultimately, she got to a point from the age of 14 to 16 that she was totally isolated, no social media, no friends, no school, no nothing. And she wrote a very compelling note, basically blaming that isolation, blaming her parents, and hoping that her suicide note would help change things. And in her very own state, we now have this.
But so, Angela, the story that you just outlined, the way I heard it, I'm not sure that the bill that Ohio's implementing would have solved that particular suicide, because she came out to multiple people, parents, she came out as trans, and they sought to remove her from society in many ways. And I can imagine that a lot of, like an attorney like yourself would look at a bill like this and see lots of what they call unintended consequences. Sounds good. This is a horrible number. We have 40% of these individuals attempting suicide yearly. This may help by forcing public employee to disclose that information if they know it. But I'm sure that something's going to come out of this the opposite way of an unintended consequence.
Well, a big part of the bill is without a law saying otherwise, without a state law saying otherwise, the international standards of when you can transition, you can make that decision prior to 18 years old. States differ from anywhere from 15, 16, and 18. So this makes it 18. So it makes the parents the be-all, end-all. It makes every single child in Ohio the same as that child who had unfortunate parents that isolated her. So if this bill did not become legislation and I were trans living in Ohio and I had unsupportive parents, I could seek out resources at school, talk to adults that normalize me, get it out somewhere and be safe in a safe place in a gay student alliance and with teachers and whatnot. And eventually, and maybe black market or without my parents knowing, start taking tea and start transitioning at 16. Because the whole point is you want to do it before puberty. I mean, that's what changes all kids' lives, is if you can hit it before puberty. But either way, if I can escape high school and get out of Ohio with some supportive adults in my corner, which the guidance counselors and teachers tend to be, then I have a chance of living. Right now, it takes every single adult that I could potentially come in contact with in school or at home off my table.
Wow.
Legally.
Wow.
Do you think this will be a trend with other states, or is this just happening in Ohio right now?
Unfortunately, Ohio is a big enough state. The same states look to each other: Indiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Ohio, North Carolina. They all kind of look at each other. Another one has not popped up, and it's been 3 months. I think they're waiting to see. But there's also not a lot of news about it. So I think if this passed the House and got any sort of traction, we would see national news one way or both good and bad.
Jeez. Well, on that happy note.
I know.
we did have a lighthearted one where we were trying to get you hooked up, we were talking about, but it's been in the news, and it was Bert and Ernie Are Gay was the headline. And I was even watching the Today Show this morning, and I believe the writer that wrote the characters for Sesame Street, and he said that they were modeled after he and his partner. He felt as he wrote their relationship for the two characters, Bert and Ernie. But Sesame Street seems to be pushing back pretty hard. Today in the news, it was that these puppets have no gender. They're just friends. They're just best friends. What do you think?
I think both can be true. I'm glad.
Spoken like an attorney.
Spoken like an attorney.
Litigant.
I'm glad that the writer came out and said that. I mean, it really put context to a debate that's been going on forever. I remember when marriage equality happened, the New Yorker asked for a Sesame episode where they would both be in bed watching the Supreme Court, oral arguments and whatnot. So this has been a long, long, long debate. And ultimately, I mean, I don't know why Sesame Street's coming out so against it. But I did read one comment that I liked, and it said, it reminds me a lot of Pat from Saturday Night Live. Does Pat have to be a man or a woman? How about we all just look and see how it makes us feel? And little kids, they see a good, loving, potentially platonic, potentially not. But at the end of the day, there's nothing but love there, and love always wins. So
there you go.
I think you can spin it any which way.
And that's a good point to move on from. Because it's a happy point.
It's a happy
Love
point.
wins.
It's funny you brought up Pat. My old career, I worked for Subaru of America, and we were launching the Outback. And one of the characters, other than using Paul Hogan, was going to be Pat from Saturday Night Live, because no one knew if it was a car or a truck.
Oh, that's a real leap.
I thought it was hilarious. Of course,
it's great, but it's a leap, man.
I think Paul Hogan worked out better.
Yeah.
Crocodile Dundee. Hey, Angela, we want to thank you for joining us. We've got an end slide graphic of you, which has your email address and your business address, which is giampaololaw.com, I believe. Yep. And so if people want to contact you, and there goes the whip.
The outlaw.
And that part's free.
Right. We also have this on Facebook, And we'll be posting this on the YouTube feed and the Facebook feed as well for people to catch up. So we want to thank you for joining us for this inaugural voyage. Maiden voyage. And even though we had a little bit of glitch in the beginning, but I think we got it fixed.
It's going to be a crazy ride.
Yeah.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have a quick shop talk. And John asked the question, could you live on $37,000 a year in retirement? And we have a couple of ideas for that, so stay tuned.
Brought to you by the 7-seater Volkswagen Atlas. Life's as big as you make it. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Been in business a week. I got more money than I know what to do with.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
Herrera Rocher. He is doing well.
On the YouTubes.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. Thanks again to Angela Giampaolo, who is going to be doing our Outlaw segment. And Tim and I just not casually, but we were just recapping some of those headlines, especially the one about the Ohio bill where the adults have to, or the teachers and guidance counselors have to convey that information. It's interesting. All right, so at the beginning of the broadcast, I opened the show by asking the seminal question, can you live on $37,000 a year in retirement? And the answer is yes, if you're not in the United States. Right?
I wondered about that. I wonder if you could do it somewhere else, but they listed 5 cities right across
and Tim
did
the
globe.
Yeah, and we'll go through them, but I personally already know my 2 if I had to, and I'm curious to see if Tim is up there as well. So they looked at cities from around the world, and there's a couple of caveats here, and they're surmountable, but you have to if you're going to relocate for retirement to a different part of the globe, you have to take some steps, especially with financial and IRS issues. English as a language, if that's your primary language in your country that it's not, there's usually a lot of people do speak English, so that might not be a big thing. The one thing I wrote down here, you might have written it too on your notes, Tim, is that if you're LGBTQ, that could also influence this whole thing of what city, what country you end up in. But
and they talk about medical care.
Sometimes it's better than the U.S.
Well, most times it is.
Most times it is.
So medical care, in infrastructure,
museums, dining,
culture, da-da-da-da-da. So what was the 5th one?
Number 5 on the list was Lisbon, Portugal. The climate is mild, even in the depths of winter. Average lows are barely below 50, while summers are sunny and generally in the 70s. Sign me up. With museums, restaurants, nightlife, and an international airport, Lisbon is also one of the most affordable capitals in Western Europe. A couple could live there quite comfortably on $33,000 a month, roughly $36,700 a year, or on considerably less, a little outside the city center, which is amazing to me. And the one thing I read that I loved, international airport. In other words, you can get in and get out. Yeah. And there's rail service. I mean, it's part
Friends of mine, I have 2 friends that just recently, 2 different friends that were just in Portugal, both fell in love. Both thought they might want to retire to Spain.
Yeah, I love Spain.
They've changed their mind to Portugal, but I love the weather idea. It sounds a little like San Francisco or Northern California weather.
Which number 4?
Number 4 was Hanoi, Vietnam, and which was interesting to me because as I read, it says it does have 4 seasons, so the hot summers. But I don't know. Everything I've seen about Vietnam is muggy.
Yeah, very wet, especially in the summertime.
But I just typed a big wow next to it. It says it has the lowest cost of living of any major city in Southeast Asia. A couple can live a comfortable lifestyle on $905 per month or $10,860 per year. I was like, my God, why don't we move?
I want to put that in.
You could only eat so much rice and noodle.
Could I put that in perspective really quickly? I went by a building here in New York City the other day. It had a banner out front, and it said brand new rental apartments, 1 and 2 bedrooms available, starting at $10,000 a month. Yeah. They're talking about living for a year on $10,000 in Hanoi, Vietnam.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting. All right.
What was number 3?
Number 3 is Phnom Penh, Cambodia. Phnom Penh, Cambodia. Once known as the Pearl of Asia, Phnom Penh offers expats a stunningly low cost of living, bustling markets, and a thriving food scene set to a backdrop of colonial French architecture and temples. A retired couple could enjoy a good life here on $1,838 a month or $22,050 a year.
Love it.
Boom. All right, number 3.
Number 2.
Oh, sorry, number 2.
Number 2, I was trying to find a clip. David Letterman was the last one who had it, but I think it was taken off. It's for Panama City. And there's a famous clip of President George W. Bush visiting
Panama City.
And he goes, I am delighted. He's looking right at the camera and he's got his book. He goes, I am delighted to be here in Panama City. Panama. And he's trying to find where Panama City. Panama. Anyway, Panama City, Panama. Where the the canal is, of course, and so many expats there. It's probably the most English speaking, I would say, of the 5 that we're going to talk about. They also use the U.S. dollar, and they said you could live there for just under $35,000 at $34,680. And it's easy to get to as well. And the healthcare system is one of the best things about living there, people say. And
here's the thing:
pretty prominent.
You could do $21,000 a year, or luxurious digs, $34,000 a year.
Oh, did I mean? Yeah. So luxury. Yeah, I went
2
luxury.
options there,
luxury,
which is smart. You, of course, because of
2 bedrooms.
Yeah, I got a bath and a half.
And the number 1, Mr. Nash.
I believe I'm going to pronounce it Quito, Ecuador. Quito, Ecuador. The first UNESCO World Heritage Site, has the best preserved historical center in all of Latin America, according to the statins. Number of livable suburbs around the city, including Gonzales, Suarez, Parque La Carolina, and Cumbaya. Kumbaya. Museums, great architecture. Monthly costs run from $1,600 to $1,800. Yearly total to live in Quito, Ecuador, $19,000 to $22,000. In fact, you'd be hard pressed to spend $37,000 a year there. So,
now I know people that have been there. And
now you know how he sets this up. When Tim says that, when he goes, now I know people who have been there.
It looks nice and it looks wonderful, and it was I think they ranked it as the number 1 as we looked. But my last 2 friends, last friend that went there and knows somebody from there, had to have an armed guard with him the whole time. Pretty rough. Pretty rough if you want to wander around town.
So can you guess the 2 that I picked?
I know what you picked.
I suspect they're
I know exactly what you picked.
Go ahead.
You picked Lisbon, Portugal, and you picked Panama City.
Those are the 2 I would consider. Those are the
That's
only.
where I'm going too.
Those are the only 2 I would consider.
Why?
Well, for starters, Lisbon is connected to Spain and all of Europe, and there's a big airport there. Easy to get to. Panama City is part of the North American thing. Again, easy to get to, back and forth, right?
And English.
And English speaking.
And uses U.S. currency. Mm-hmm. And it's you feel like at least you're in this hemisphere. I picked the same ones. I like the idea of Cambodia for some reason. I've always wanted to go to Cambodia
as a visitor.
That's a tourist. That's a long way away. And I think they got lizards and snake things that I don't like.
But frankly, if you're making a huge decision and you're in a couple, or even if you're single and you want to retire to one of these places, it strikes me that Lisbon and Panama are going to provide you with the closest access to what you are leaving. So if you're leaving, like, let's say you're in your mid-70s, you're like, what a great kind of change of life thing, too. I actually thought of this as, I'm serious, I think I would definitely consider Lisbon, only because I love cycling and I love cycling in Spain. I've had some of the nicest experiences there, France as well. But again, there you say, the minute I said that, you can hop on a train, you could visit France. You could...
Right, and friends of mine, as I said, that thought they were going to retire to Spain are now considering Portugal. The only difficulty, and I mentioned this to them because when you and I went to Brazil, even though I could get by in Spanish, I could not get a thing done in Portuguese.
No.
And I thought it would be. I remember you on the train yelling at me. Actually, though, in Spain, we didn't know what they were speaking because it was going to Barcelona, and
Basque,
it was
right?
it was Catalonia.
Catalonia, yeah.
John's like, what are they saying? I said, I don't know. Are we on the right train? Are we going to Portugal? It might be Portuguese.
And meanwhile, it's a high-speed rail, farmland zipping by. We didn't know where we were going to end up. We're like, we think we're going to Barcelona.
All I know is I asked for a ticket, and yo necesito una billete a la Barcelona, and they just handed me the 2 things. I'm like, here we go.
Tim goes, I scored the 2 tickets, and then bing, bing. We're like, we hope we're on the right train. We did have a fun time.
That's funny we picked Panama. And so if you had... Now, Panama's going to be hot. You don't mind the heat. But if you had to pick one.
Lisbon.
Okay, I struggled. I would pick Lisbon for the way they describe the weather. I might have to go to Panama.
Done. But if summer is 72 and sunny, but you might as well be living in Los Angeles. And if winter's 50, you know how on the East Coast when the day hits 50, you're like, spring is here.
Listen, maybe instead of your trip to, you and I talked at lunch, you were going to go somewhere else in Europe. Maybe you should consider going here for your trip.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
Scope it out for us. See if we can find a place we can live.
You know, that's a great idea. Okay. I like that.
Okay. Hey, listen, thanks for joining us. Are we all done?
Yeah, right.
We want to thank you for joining us today. Thanks to Deep Discount for being partners of us here on the show. Be sure to go to focusgroupradio.com and click on the Deep Discount logo. We have the Criterion sale going all month long. And John did pick that flick this week, so if you knew what the name of the movie is, rewind, check it out, and let us know at letters@focusgroupradio.com. A big thanks to our friends at Volkswagen. There's a number of year-end, even though it's not the total year-end yet, but model year-end sales going on right now. Visit VW.com to learn more. Thank you, John. Thank you, Garrett. Thanks to whoever sent us our mystery Oreos. We don't know. We
still like kettle corn.
We like kettle corn. Don't text and drive, arrive alive. And we'll see you next week. We've got Douglas Spencer joining us, who was another former guest of the show. He just came out with a new book about branding, so he'll be joining us next week. Everyone, catch us Tuesday for TFG Unbuttoned. See you then.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.